me, this is a benefit. There we go.
Oh, that's on now, thank you.
This is a benefit, and benefits apply to full-time employees.
Okay, and so full-time for the city is 40? I don't know that either, 'cause
I don't know the answer to that. I think it might be
And then above 30?
30, yeah.
okay, all right, I just wanted to be very specific. Do we have any other questions about, as we look at that?
No, I know it's gonna sound really self-serving, but we've talked about it before. Is there anything up for board members? We volunteer our time, and I've mentioned before, is there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid point, that there probably needs to be a conversation about the different structures, or how that would apply for park board member, golf board member, those people who volunteer their time, whether it's even, the architectural board or whomever, the people who volunteer their time to the city and serve on boards. I think that's a worthy conversation.
So, you don't have anything necessarily typed up to look at, you just want to start the discussion?
Yes.
I think it's a good advertisement, a good perk to, for
I think
people
so,
to,
too.
to join the team.
All right. For next board meeting, we'll draft a proposal, and we'll try and capture all the different boards where people serve voluntarily, and we'll go at that point.
Okay, David, did you have anything to add?
Well, it just says park rentals. Can you elaborate for me?
It could be, you want to you want to have a family thing at Rucker, and you want to rent a field for a day. We charge 200, so maybe it's 100. We do pavilion rentals, or Johnson, you want to rent Johnson Park or something
Okay.
like that. Or you want to rent Crystal Beach for 2 hours one night. Any of the parks that we have a fee associated with rentals, it would apply to that.
Hunter Hall.
Hunter Hall.
Okay,
I assume, though, it would exclude things like the campground?
It would, yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
okay.
Swimming pool,
Yeah.
are we able to rent out the swimming pool?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
would that extend to the Crystal Beach
yes.
rental as well?
Yes. Right now, for the public, it's $800 for 2 hours plus the cost of lifeguards, and so we wouldn't charge half price for lifeguards. We have to cover the expense of that, but the pool rental itself would be half price.
Anything else before we move
No,
on?
no.
Okay. Assistant Director Tanya Burnett, you're on deck. No, you're up.
You have the new newsletter there for July and August, which has all the programs and activities for the next 2 months. Things at the senior center have been going well with Carter there. The boat trip, there were 37 people that went on the Rockin' Thunder Day trip. We've got another day trip planned for July, going to the aquarium on July 17th, and there's already people signing up for that one. Keely and I have been working on a general trifold, which is there in front of you for the parks, that doesn't necessarily have specific programming that's dated. We wanted something general enough that wasn't going to be outdated as soon as we had it printed. We'll use these in welcome packets at the campground, the visitor center, sitting out here, the senior center, hand them out at the fair, just different places. So if you guys see anything in there, Carla, specifically your pickleball, you might look at that before we get these printed later this week. The goal is to have them for the fair next week, but Keely always does a beautiful job making these look so pretty. I just give her the information to put in them, but that's what you have there in front of you. Parade updates. We have 80 participants in the parade Friday. We're all set on volunteers, and everything's rolling right along with that as planned. And I don't really have a whole lot more since we just met a few weeks ago, but if you guys have any questions, let me know. And if you see anything missing in the brochure, or any input on that, I'd love to have that quickly, because we are going to print them this week sometime.
So, one of the questions I always get from people are, how many floats are gonna be in the pool, not just entries? Do you know
Oh,
approximates?
I don't know. I don't. Nick lined the parade up. I didn't ask her that specifically.
Okay.
I'd say a third of it. I mean,
Oh, well, that would be good. It seemed like for many years it was just motorcycle groups and, like, I like those, but the floats are what really draws people in.
Mhm.
And so any way we could promote that or, make that more attractive for people, that would be, I think that's more enjoyable to the public, but. Okay, Scott Klein, you're up. Oh, sorry. Oh, campground, yes, Tanya.
yeah, those are in your packet there.
I like this.
Oh, the newsletter, yeah. Are you referring to this that says campground revenue expense report
Mm-hmm.
paper?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's several pages there.
Is there anything that you want to brag about on this, that you're encouraged by, or any concerns?
I would say that we're getting a lot of really good feedback online from customers. Very happy with the management at the campground. People who have been before and probably have not had the greatest experience that are now telling us how much they love being there and how great Georgia and Doug are doing, and looking forward to repeated trips. So I think we're already starting to see some changes going on down there. We're spending a little bit more money this year than last, but we're making some improvements, which is warranted, nothing major. And we still have more work to do, and as we start talking about budget next year, we gotta think about some more, upgrades there until we figure out what we're gonna do ultimately. But I think the revenue looks good, our expenses are up a little bit, again, we're capturing now a lot of the fees that we charge for and then have to pass through. So those are both on the revenue and the expense side of the report. But overall, we're ahead of last year. Our numbers still aren't great on a percentage basis, but we're trying to do some promotions through the week, starting next week after regatta. Monday through Thursday promotions, play and stay, get some discounts at the golf course or at the pool. Try and draw some more people in during the week to help increase our occupancy rate. So it's all about marketing and drawing people in. I have a meeting with Good Sam, which is a travel industry magazine, on Monday. I think it's Monday next week. Talk about possibly advertising in there to help draw people to Madison as well. So good things happening at the campground. Great personnel there, and it's looking good. And I think we're happy with the direction we're headed.
So if I'm reading this correctly, we're up $30,000 compared to last year, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So what are we still trying to get better at?
Well, Monday through Thursday is not great. That's probably our biggest hole in the donut right now, is trying to draw people in for week-long stays. We got the sanitary tote, because if you think about our camp dumps at each site, so then you have to disconnect everything, unlevel it, move it, dump it, and then go back again. We're trying to help avoid that. And that gray water tank, I think we're renting it for $5 a use, so we're hoping that will help people feel like they can stay a little bit longer without having to move their RV and put it back again. So that's kind of a short-term fix until we figure out how to sewer laterals for the whole site. But we've got some lighting issues down there. We've got some issues with proximity of fire pits to the edge of the property and rocks and those kinds of things. We're gonna need new fire pits. Those are all rusting out. So, just usual wear and tear and some safety things to look at, that we'll address over the summer and focus on for next year.
On the second page, at the two boxes at the bottom, one says year-to-date reservations and the other one says total year reservations 2024.
Right.
Is one of those, I mean, they're both, I guess I'm confused by year-to-date and total year, or is one of
Right,
those supposed to be
So we have reservations
23?
for Chautauqua, we have reservations
Yeah.
for events coming up that are already on the books.
Okay.
And so what I wanted to do was establish where we are to date, which is the top box, versus where we are for the year, which is the bottom box.
So the 6006 is part of the 7722.
Correct. The
Thank you.
Subset, yep.
Thank you. That's where I was confused by it, so.
Yeah, 7,722 are the total nights possible to stay at the campground for both Riverfront and Riverview. And to date, the maximum you can stay is 6,006.
Thank you.
You welcome.
So we'll go into now the programs update, Scott, from you.
Thank you. Baseball and softball wrapped up on Thursday night. Technically, Friday night they had a parents-kids game like they do every Friday night. And then Saturday we had a pool party at Crystal Beach for our baseball and softball kids. Probably had 100 people at the pool on Saturday. Had 150 for the year programmatically, which is almost double than we had last year. So we're moving in the right direction. So that was a good year this year. I've got some ideas for next year and timing, and we'll start talking about that fairly soon. Our next skate night is August 2nd, so that's coming up. That'll be here before we know it. That'll kind of kick off our fall season. We're also starting conditioning for football here very shortly at Rucker. We've been having meetings with Hoosier Hills Football League Conference, talking about scheduling, and those games usually start in September. I think the Jamboree is going to be in August. So we're already at that point where we need to start getting more kids signed up. Last year we didn't have many about this time. We picked up as we got closer. So we'll start advertising for that very shortly. So programmatically, that's kind of finishing the one, and we're starting to lead in the fall sports already. So we're excited about where we're going with the programs.
Have you been able to connect with the new football coach? About
Not
trying to
yet. I had a
coordinate?
conversation with Kenton on last Tuesday at the golf board meeting. We're going to make that connection. Seems like we're very like-minded as to having our programs feeding up to their programs. We need to talk about flag football and whether they want to run that like they did last year. So we've got some things to talk about, but that should be coming shortly.
Okay.
Crystal Beach update. I've got a couple different updates for you for Crystal Beach. One, I wanted to kind of show you where we are to date, basically money in, money out. I want to talk a little bit about SNAP and WIC and Jane's Kids, and then I want to talk about just kind of our overall sales numbers, where we are, and I'm talking about from the day we opened, so May 26th to yesterday. So I've included a little bit of May in there since we had a few days. So this is about 5 weeks worth of data that we've received so far. Jane's Kids has been fairly quiet. We have about 50 kids signed up for entries with Jane's Kids. I don't have any new numbers from since the middle of June. I didn't pick those up today. That number is a little bit smaller than I thought it would be. We have 10 kids signed up for swim lessons through Jane's Kids. They right now have a wait list, so 50 is where we're at for right now until they receive more funding, and then we may bump up with some more Jane's Kids. For SNAP and WIC, we have 400 people enrolled in that program, which is the maximum allowed by Bethany. To date, we've had 475 entries into the pool through that program, and they've spent about $2,400 at the concession stand. So that averages about $6 a person at the concession stand. So I think it's I think that's working out very, very well. Very happy about that. Kind of just bigger numbers, just because I'm kind of a numbers guy. Daily entries, these are paid entries. These aren't season passes, family passes. These are strictly paid daily entries. Since the 26th of May, we've had 13,381 daily entries at the pool. We've sold just under $1,000 in merchandise. We have 20 entry passes, that the $85 20 entry passes. We sold 44 of those. Sold 9 individual passes, 11 family passes, 28 senior, and then a combination of 4 city employee, first responder, veterans. See what else here. Jane Skid swim lessons we talked about. Swim lessons, all the swim lessons combined, we have 207 participants. We have 39 participants for the full water aerobics daytime. We have 105 additionals, which are the monthlies. And then water exercise classes, we have 70 people signed up for those. And then full summer water exercise, 83 people signed up for those. And then we have some private swim lessons. So overall, we've got some pretty active programs at the pool. The concession stand is insane. We've had incredible luck at the concession stand. We've sold just under $39,000 at the concession stand in 5 weeks. So just some numbers out there for you. We've sold 1,708 slices of pizza in 5 weeks. 2,613 pretzels, 1,349 nachos, and 1,600 hot dogs in 5 weeks. So we're keeping the kids busy over there. It's been very, very good. We spent a lot of money on material for that, and we have a lot of material still stored. So our expenses right now, if you calculated the percentage, our expenses are higher than it would be, but we have a lot of inventory, which would reduce the expenditures if you did it in a true food cost calculation. So overall for the year, with all of our programming at the pool so far, we've got about $157,600 in revenue at the pool so far. Some of that includes some sponsorships for opening, and as well as Hunter Hall rentals. So overall, we're doing fairly well there.
The pool's staying packed.
Yes.
So my question is probably the most controversial thing about the pool opening was the family pass rate. So we only sold 11. Would you say that we're making that up in $5 daily pass sales, or
Yeah.
so it's a wash, or?
Yeah, I actually
Pardon the pun.
believe, and I think going in, that's kind of what we anticipated, was that people were gonna do the math and figure out whether or not it made sense for them. And I think a lot of people took the wait and see attitude of, okay, let's see what the pool's like, and let's see how busy it is and how good it is, and a lot of questions that were hanging out there. Even the pool passes, the season passes that I've seen from families, they're not overusing it. So I think I've got one family that may have had 10 entries total so far. So the people who bought pool passes aren't, they're not there every day. So I think that lends to the point where I think people are looking at the daily passes as the way to go. So we'll just keep collecting data. We'll see where we are at the end of the year. I'm not opposed, honestly, at that number. I'd rather see a lot of dailies than a lot of annuals. I think our senior passes are very well priced, as well as our other passes. So we'll see what the numbers are at the end of the year. I think we sold 3 family passes in the last couple weeks. So people aren't even now rushing out to buy them. So I think it's a matter of preference, really. It's really going to be depending on the families and what they want to do and how much they want to spend.
On the water aerobics, it says that we have a very healthy wait list. So in the future, maybe we consider, remind me, is the first class at 9 a.m.?
Yes, it's at 9 o'clock. Yeah.
maybe we consider an 8 o'clock and a 9 o'clock to help accommodate more people?
Yeah,
Oh, swim
we've got
lessons are
swim
at 8.
lessons, yeah. So we're using the swim lanes in the morning, for swim lessons while we've got water aerobics going on. So I think there's opportunity for us to increase that next year. Really, this year was how big is the pool and how many people can we fit comfortably, and how many, we may have 60 people signed up to go, but 30 may show up. And we may consistently have 30 show up. And if that's the case, then we know we can expand those numbers. So, this year's about data collection and understanding. I think I was surprised about how popular the nighttime water aerobics classes became, which is why we have those huge wait lists. So that's very informative for next year, that we've got to really think about that programmatically, and how to improve that for access for everybody next year. We're talking right now, I had a conversation with Whitney today about possibly opening the pool earlier in the morning, like maybe 6:30, and allowing lap swimming from 6:30 to 8 before we get swim lessons, to see what kind of response we get on that. And then we've had conversations already about having the pool stay open later on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, as long as it's not rented. That maybe we go to 8 o'clock at night on those nights. We just have to get the staffing piece worked out, so make sure you have enough bodies to do that. So we're already having those conversations. We'll make that decision very, very quickly, probably next week or so, of whether we add some hours to it, especially with it being so light out late and so hot out, that we can probably capture as long as we've got coverage. And then we'll have to see where we are once we get towards school going back, and whether we have the option of, maybe we do swim at your own risk type of thing, if we're having some issues with lifeguards, and we can open for lap swimming and some other activities with the swim at your own risk. But that's a conversation we need to have in the next month or so.
Well, I like the extended hours on the weekends, because we don't have any swim team practice. We don't have our classes that interfere. That's,
Yep.
I think that people are sometimes confused on why we're not doing that Monday through Friday. Well, the pool is busy Monday through Thursday, every night until at least 8 o'clock.
Correct.
But I really like that, like, we need to vote on that. I'm all in on the weekend extended hours.
Yeah, we just need to make sure that we have lifeguard coverage, which is our biggest issue. We have a lot. We've got over 35 lifeguards right now, but with vacations and people taking time off and people being sick, we're struggling, believe it or not, right now to make sure we have enough coverage. So we need to make sure we get that nailed down. We've hired a few more lifeguards, and we need to make sure we have that coverage. But as soon as we get that figured out, then I think it's very prudent for us to stay open later.
Okay.
Overall, expense and revenue pieces, I want to break down to some extent some of the bigger expense line items we've experienced so far at the pool, and remind you that probably 7 or 8 of these are not repeatable expenses. So janitorial supplies, office supplies, merchandise, miscellaneous repairs, training and travel, sports equipment and supplies. A lot of those were to open the pool, and so we capture those in this report, but those will not be repeated every single month. So those expenses, you won't see those all the time. And I didn't realize that the Excel spreadsheet crunched their numbers, so I don't have the total, the general operating expenses. Right now, we're showing a net profit of $9,000 for the first 5 weeks, and that includes purchasing essentially all the chemicals for the year. So that's, again, not a repeatable expense we're going to have. So July will really be the kind of the number of, okay, this is what the pool is going to do every month. So I'm looking forward to this coming month to see what that number is going to be.
Now, are salaries on that?
They are, yep,
Okay.
yep. Personnel for the first 7 weeks is $47,000.
Okay.
So that number's on there. Any questions on Crystal Beach? All right. Sunrise Golf Course, year-to-date, just give you some numbers. I kind of did a little top-level view because I have a lot of numbers to throw at you tonight. Year-to-date, revenue, $291,000, against expenses of $223 for net operating profit of $68,000 to date. Last year, we had revenue $252, expenses of $128.8 for a net profit of $123. Remind you that this year we have been paying chemical invoices monthly versus one big lump sum that was happening every year. I think July is when those numbers hit. So, which I think last year was $65,000 that hit in July. So our expense numbers are up. Also, our expense numbers, I essentially, it's a construction term, I bought out some salaries for the year. So the golf pro salary, we know what that is, so that's been allocated across each month for the entire year. Same thing with the golf course superintendent numbers. So you'll see on your spreadsheet, you'll see some red numbers with expenses for July, August, September. Those are salary numbers that we know are coming. They're just gonna be there. So our expense number itself actually is through the end of June. It's not for the entire year, but you'll see that we've got some numbers out there that are future numbers. We'll absorb those. And I expect to see next month that our 2023 expense to date number is gonna jump significantly because of the chemicals from last year. So we'll see that in the next report. Cart fees for the year, right now, we're down $6,000, $46,000 in revenue this year as opposed to 52 last year. Our greens fees, we are up $800 from last year, just under 61,000 versus 60 from last year. Food and beverage, we're up $4,300 year to year from last year. And our annual purchases, that would be annual pass, spouse pass, cart trail fees, cart storage, that number's down $38,000. We achieved about $17,000 in sales in December, kind of a pre-sale. So if you reduce that, the number's about $21,000. I've included in your packet the placer data for Sunrise for this year, and there's a lot of data in there. But one thing to look at is the number of people who are frequenting the course. That's down about 30% from last year, and then the number of times they come back is down as well. So we've talked about this at Golf Board. I firmly believe that's an issue with the economy more than it is anything else. People aren't using that discretionary spending. They're not buying season passes. They're coming and playing as they want to. So I think that's probably, and I think that's probably part of the reason why we're seeing that number be down from last year. The course is probably the best shape it's ever been, so it's not a course issue. I just think it's just an economy issue.
Is now a good time to bring up some of those things we talked about?
Let me do one more thing, and then I'll give you a little intro, if you will.
Okay.
David, you asked last week, our last meeting, if we can get some comparables from last year to this year. So that is in this. It's a couple pages called GL Summary. It shows from the Golf Now application of how many units we sold last year and what type versus what we have this year. Now, we've got two different systems, so they're described a little differently. So this year we'll have things like the actual twilight walking pass and weekend, where last year it was just adult. So that should give you the numbers that you're looking for as compared to last year.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. The golf board meets on the last Tuesday of each month. We met last Tuesday, and I don't know if a challenge is the right word, but I asked the golf board to be a little bit more vocal and have conversations with the park board about some issues that we're having at Sunrise that are starting to grow. And I think I'll just let Jake pick it up from there since Jake's on the golf board.
Yeah, so
Represent.
I mentioned last year at some point about the irrigation system sort of being on its last legs. I think we're getting really close for that to come to roost a little bit, and that's gonna be a big expense. But it's not something that we need to keep putting, we should keep putting Band-Aids on. And it's not just me, you know, it's sort of a golf board thing, right? It's an infrastructure thing for the course it's really starting to show its age, with, you know, tee boxes and especially some greens that are very saturated and could affect play and could affect the course. So that's, the infrastructure, according to the golf board, is the number one, sort of our number one issue right now. And I think anybody who's sort of around the game a lot knows that it's important, you know, to be able to feed the course properly, as well as we've got a couple other things that have been known issues. People they talk about the lack of working GPS on the carts. That's an issue, and we rent those out. So we've tried to come up with other ways to maybe not continue the contract on the GPS because we rent those. Is that right?
We have a 4-year contract.
Yeah.
I got that today. It expires in March. We are locked in until March with that. There is an avenue for repairs with the GPS if we have those screens still. But for right now, yeah, we're locked in until March, and then we've got to figure out what we want to do next year.
So we've talked about maybe, you know, putting prisms out there, and I asked, you know, Carl and Kenton, the guys that, you know, play every day, and they say that would be a great solution. Most people that play every day use, you know, the range finders or whatever, so the prisms would be a nice sort of solution instead of using GPS that we have to continue to manage. And then I'm glad to see that Roger's here today, so he can corroborate my story a little bit too on the golf carts. Our fleet of golf carts is aging as well. I think we have, did you say 33, Roger? 33. We have 33 golf carts that are 10, 12 years old now, and we're continuing to put Band-Aids on those as well. 33 is not a very big fleet, so Roger estimates that we're losing probably about $1,000 per week on weekends because we have to wait on golf carts to make their way around. So he's got to block off time periods on golf carts. So we don't have enough carts. So we're losing money by not having enough, as well as on big events. We also don't have enough carts to rent out as well. So we're losing money there when we hold big events, you know, golf scrambles, big tournaments, things like that, where people want to spectate. And that's really a good time to have those carts, is because golf courses can sort of set whatever price they want. You know, a normal cart fees, what, $15, $18, and you know, for those things we can charge $30, $40 for a golf cart on those. So it's their premium on those days. So those are just some things that just want to make sure everybody's aware of that we need to have conversations about in the future, especially the irrigation system. That's going to become a very big problem very soon.
So on the prism thing you were talking about, are you saying that people would bring their own, like we wouldn't need to supply those? Or you're saying you think one should come with every cart?
No, people have their own, and it's
So we wouldn't need the GPSs at all? Is that what we're
Correct.
leaning toward?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, that's an option. So if you get new golf carts, if you lease golf carts, you can get GPS systems integrated with those golf carts, and it's part of that lease package. These were add-on GPS systems that were added onto the golf carts, so it's a little different. My personal feeling is, in the future, I think we should have GPS on our golf carts, but until we get to figure out what we're going to do with those, the prisms are, I think Christian said they're like $40 per flag stick, so $750 we buy the prisms, and then that gets us through until we figure out what we're going to do with carts and GPS.
So remind me, because I'm not a golfer, do our cards, our scorecards have a layout of every hole? So that if I'm a stranger coming to town, but I'm not a big golfer, so I don't have my own prism, can I see the layout?
Yeah,
Yes?
there's little pictures of the layouts of the holes, and
Okay,
then when you play, there's like yardage
just to
markers.
show me dog leg right. or
Aren't they on the
whatever.
signs also?
Okay.
Yeah, and there's like
Okay.
yardage markers and things like that. Are they on the signs?
Okay. Ooh, do we have all of our signs up now? How many have sponsors on them, of our 18 that we purchased?
I think we have 8 and 1 pending.
Okay.
It looks good.
And one other thing, as we're thinking about, whether we lease golf carts when that ends or whatever, I think Roger and I had talked about, we have cart storage right now, so hopefully someone that has these skills, not myself, can compare, the loss we would lose in cart storage versus being able to rent more golf carts, and which outweighs the other for us.
We talked about that at the golf board last week, and again, it's short-term versus longer-term. We think we have some availability and some storage already that we can move some equipment that really isn't being used for anything, which may allow us to add some additional carts short-term, and then we have to figure out whether it makes sense for us to. I'm not one to do. Let's spend 20 grand to build a new storage building that in 4 years is going to get torn down because we're going to
Right.
do something else. So we've got to weigh those options of what do we do short term that we're not going to repeat and spend money twice, but yet achieve the goal that we need to achieve. And so we've got to have those conversations.
And what's your capacity now?
We've got 35 carts in the basement.
But what will fit down there?
It's pretty maxed out.
It's pretty maxed out.
Yeah, we'd have to build some sort of cheap pole barn, which there is space. There's space over there by 18 in the maintenance shed.
Or we just stop providing cart storage and we use that barn. Is that what we're thinking? That's an option, correct?
Yes,
That's
there's-
an option.
Yeah, we have
Good
options.
I'm not saying it's a good one. Okay. I'm not trying to start a firestorm. I'm just weighing all of the options.
Good luck. So, now, there was talk, if we are going to be a golf cart community, because no other golf course lets
Right.
community members keep their own cart,
Right.
but it's also kind of a pretty cool service that we provide. Do we want to be like everybody else, or do we want to have this cool service that we have for our community members? But if that's the case, then we got to figure out other ways to pay for it, and maybe they still end up paying for it somewhere else down the road. How they sort of through some other means, Scott, where they sort of subsidize the fact that they get to keep their carts
Okay.
on the premises.
And there's other things that go with that. Probably talk about. There's when people bring their own carts, they bring their own carts versus one that might actually be appropriate for the golf course. And so, how do we address that? And how do we make sure that people are have an appropriate vehicle and are driving it appropriately? So there's a lot of little nuances to all of this and how we try and get it fixed and figured out. But to Jake's point is we charge a trail fee now, and maybe that's a nice little bonus for them, but maybe that trail fee needs to be looked at as well. So we'll start working on next year's fees for all across the parks, and we'll have these conversations and maybe try and figure out some of this through the golf board.
Fees was something else that was brought up at the last golf board meeting too, which I find ironic, is I wasn't on the golf board then, but when we originally changed the prices, like the membership prices, whatever that was, 5 years ago-ish, right? And a lot of people talked about how expensive it was, and now everybody that shows up again talks about how cheap we are. So I feel like we're probably leaving some revenue on the table there as well. Now, I'm not saying we, bump the prices up for everybody, but, if somebody's coming from Cincinnati and Indianapolis and says how cheap we are, maybe we have some sort of tiered pricing system, and sort of keep it the same for locals, but people who come in from out of town have a little extra you need to pay, but not too much to where it turns them away. I don't know, it's all stuff that's being discussed, trying to maximize the golf course as best we
Well,
can.
we discussed that with the pool too. Jefferson County residents get this price. If you're coming from, somewhere other than Jefferson County, Indiana, then you'd have another. So, I understand what you're saying.
But how do you know? You don't always know.
Yeah, you'd have to ask for ID. You would.
How much is a golf cart these days? One with GPS? If yeah, say you had to buy 20 of them, how much is it?
Probably in the 8,500 range for a stripped down version, of course.
I was gonna say 8,000 is, we've been shopping, so yes. Lisa and I are looking for, oh, so, yeah, that's true, ours are a little bit more. Stripped down, what did you say?
For the golf course. It's not gonna have a raised bed.
Right, right,
Seats on the back and other amenities that, we would normally put on a golf cart.
right.
The other, one factor I'd like to add to the golf cart lease is the personnel factor to it. With a lease, and you have a manufacturer's traveling rep that's gonna maintain the fleet. Right now, we're having to hire somebody to do that ourselves, because we have purchased it. I don't wanna pull the mechanic out of the maintenance barn and come and check the water in our batteries. If I have somebody else that's doing those daily maintenance services on our fleet right now, we don't have that person, we're in trouble. Probably our carts are falling apart. I probably have 20 operational carts. But if you do a lease program, then that comes from the manufacturer, traveling tech, that either goes out and will fix major issue. Would help with the personnel issue that we're having, at the golf course, but I hear from other departments in the parks.
So anyways, just so you're aware, we're the yay or nay people. We need Scott and Roger to come up with a plan and, put some things in front of us that we actually can vote on, but we've got issues.
And we've known for a while these were coming. Okay. Scott, are you finished on your end? Comfort station, you've not,
Well, I'll just briefly go over Parks budget. You have NRO and general budgets in your packets. You'll see notes on those, on the detail reports of each. Those are my notes that I'm questioning why we're getting charged for them or if they're in the right spot. As you go through those, one thing for you to look at is you will see in the general budget for repairs and maintenance, it shows that we're over budget. That primarily is for the work that was done at Brown Gym on repairing the floor last fall. We didn't pay that contractor until January, so it shows up this year instead of last year. So that, including with the asbestos testing and the work, was about an $18,000 hit on the repair and maintenance line. That was for Brown Gym for last year, but we catalog this as we pay it versus when it was earned, so that's why you'll see that. Move on to the comfort station. You'll remember that last year we went out to bid for renovation of the comfort station. That number came in at about $170,000. We only had about $60,000 available to us to do that renovation, so we put that on hold. We have started looking at bringing that back up with, instead of having a general contractor manage it, just have me manage the construction piece of that. We'd like to get started with some limited renovation work here in the next couple weeks. And Andrew Forrester from VMI wants to go back to the County Tourism Board in August to ask for additional funding. And he wants us to show that we're doing some work on it. So I put together a little bit of a summary of the work that we can get started on right now, in the next couple weeks. That would be to create the interior vestibule, which would separate VMI's space from the general public in non-working hours, upgrading some lighting and some blank outlets and switches that we have, getting those reinstalled, a storage cabinet for VMI for some of their materials, rack brochures and that type of thing, and then tearing out the tile that's in the lobby and cleaning up the existing flooring outside of the bathrooms and putting in an epoxy floor back down. And also included 10% contingency for that work, so All that is quoted, at about $25,700. I put $3,000 for interior painting allowance for that lobby area as well. And then I think additionally, we can still do some more work with the money that we have available. We can do some exterior painting, upgrade that, upgrade the soffit lighting outside. I want to relocate the janitor closet door to give VMI a blank wall as soon as you walk in, and then in some more contingency. So combined with that scope of work, I'm looking at about $42,000. We have $40,000 available to us from the tourism board, from the housekeeping, the bed tax. And then Carl and I spoke on Friday about some additional money that may be available as well. This would be kind of short term, and then if we get additional money from the tourism board in August, then we could really actually attack the restroom part of the building, which would be the greater expense with urinals and flooring and sinks and partitions and lighting and more things that desperately need to be upgraded there. So coming to you right now we have this appropriated, so I don't think we have to do anything with council. It comes from the tourism board, the money's there for us to use. So I think I'm just asking, do we need to do anything else in order to start this work other than notifying the public and putting signs up and making sure people are aware?
So are you saying we did receive that first batch of money already?
Correct.
From the Board of Tourism?
Yes.
I would say, yeah, I mean, we can double check, but, just something for the future in our next phase, possibly the remote lock that we use at the Brown Gym and Hunter Hall, that it can lock at a certain time and then
Yeah.
people cannot get in.
That's fairly easy for us to do. We've already got security cameras there that are tied into the system, so all that infrastructure is there. We just have to do the remote lock. Yeah.
And then I would also just beg and plead, the bathrooms are probably, in my mind, the most important aspect of this refresh, especially with tourism season coming to our little town. That is the main place people go on Main Street. So if there's anything else, like maybe even before we paint, like to do little things just to get it up to snuff, because it just needs to be better.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think having VMI there will help some of the issues we have with vandalism there and some of the problems we've got. So I hope that will mitigate things going forward. But for us to go in there and paint and refresh it as best we can now is very low cost, and we can certainly do that. I want to try and do this so that we're not taking the comfort station down for 3 or 4 weeks in the middle of summer.
Right.
I think the electricians can work while we're open. The flooring will have to be done, closed, that'll probably be 2 days. And then, the painting can be done while we're open, the cabinetry can be installed while we're open. So I want to try and mitigate closing this as much as possible. And I think really the only time we'll have to do that is for the flooring. We might have to close while we're putting up the storefront inside, just from a safety perspective. But again, that'd probably be 1 day.
And is this not something that has to go to bid like a lot of our city projects?
Because we're essentially going trade by trade, so we're actually just going out for individual. We're not,
Okay.
it's not a package.
Not one big contractor, okay.
Right.
Do I have anything else on that?
No.
Skate park is your last.
All right, last time, we just spent approximately $1,100 in a lot of labor, painting, graffiti, and the mess at the skate park up at Rucker. Having conversations with the mayor, we feel that it's time to let the public know that if the public can't take care of that skate park won't be available for use. So we are making some signs and posting it on the fence that state the fact that if this isn't taken care of, and if this graffiti and the problems we're having up there continue, we will close that skate park permanently. So I just wanted to give you guys the heads up that the mayor and I have had this conversation. We are heading in that direction. We hope it doesn't come to that. but there's the few that are doing the damage up there are gonna ruin it for a lot of people, and we don't wanna see that happen. So that's, we're very close to putting that out there.
Okay, at this time, Roger, did you want to address us on anything specific from the golf course? No, I'm just saying, if you came with, the intention of sharing something, this would be a good time.
No, I'm excited about my first tee program, I'll tell you about that.
Okay, good. Yes.
Yeah, we had a June session, we just finished up, the, 18 kids, I think it's down just a few from last year. But it was, a different mix of age groups, so I've got 3 age groups. Started 7 to 9, 10 to 11, and 12 and up. Typically, the younger one was the biggest one, but they were all pretty even, and I had a lot more in the older group. I was hoping Phil would be here, cause his son was, one of those golfers. Managed to grab a few baseball players, those boys are playing travel baseball, so, gonna have a few more. I've got another camp coming July. Basically do, 3 weeks, and out 2 days a week, do an hour each. And probably the biggest pushback that I've had is the parents want, fundamental golf swing drills. I'm not teaching that. I'm teaching them how to take care of the golf course, rake the bunkers, let faster players play through the rules of golf, the etiquette of golf, so they can come out and feel free and, nobody's gonna yell at them too much. So, that's a lot of what I'm doing in that junior golf camp. Second session starts, got the numbers, expecting some walk-in traffic, but I got about 15 in the second camp. And I've made it to where if the kids went on vacation the last week of that first camp, they can go ahead and hit a couple days in my second camp. But other than the golf etiquette, I'm doing games to make it fun and just trying to let them have a good experience when they go to the golf course and give them enough golf etiquette to where they feel like they can come back and be comfortable. So, the other thing about that junior camp, the Regatta Cup we had last weekend, it's a privately, organized event, and they passed the hat for junior golf. 2 years ago, they, gave me a big lump sum of money. They gave me another $1,000 this year. What I saw in a lot of those kids is they had equipment, but it was not the proper equipment, too big for them. They were bringing their grandpa's golf clubs out and developing a lot of bad swing habits. So now I'm investigating, and we talked about this in the golf board meeting. So there's some companies that are specializing in junior equipment. So if I got some of those kids that showed some talent at baseball, what happens if they get a set of golf clubs that's fit for them, and how much better will they be able to hit the ball? So Phil's son is one of those. He's got a great big long driver, and he's grabbing the steel of the shaft when he's trying to hit it. So that's something that I'm going to use those private funds to try to do something of. I don't want to necessarily sell them to the kids. I'd almost like to do more of a rental program so I can get them back and get them to the kids next year, stuff like that. So, other than that, I started the men's match play. We're going to do, for your non-golfers, basically there's 2 types of events. A medal play tournament is what you watch on TV. Count every shot, put up the score at the end of 4 days, and that lowest guy wins. In match play, it's more like a tennis event to where 2 people are playing. Play by the hole, so I can make a 10 on the first hole, and Carla makes a 3. I'm only down by 1. So you play the 18 holes. So it's a match play event. So it's an event that takes longer, but it's a different type of format, different type of competition, and just something different we've done. We had some plaques made a couple years ago on the wall, so I want to continue that and get the guys. It's not a whole lot of money. I think it's a $25 entry fee, and I give all the prize money back to the players. I had 4 different flights. 16 players in 4 different flights, so it was a pretty good tournament. I was happy with it. So, you all have any questions about the golf course?
Yeah, you were talking about your first tee program and how you're not really getting into the mechanics of the swing or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's because you're following the first tee curriculum, correct?
Exactly.
And it just doesn't incorporate that part.
Yes, and it's a little more challenging in a group format like that. Now, I have another coach with me. They make it keep a 6-to-1 ratio. So I hire some varsity golfers to come help me, but it's still, it's tough to, break down. In that age, the kid has to have some talent before you really start talking about, swing path and attack angle and different stuff like that. So I consider that more designed for private lessons, which I have been given some private lessons too. So But in that group format, really, I'm just trying to introduce the game to them and give them some life skills that they can carry even if they don't keep playing golf.
And aren't there some advantages for you using that program? Don't they get some discounts or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, actually, I printed out some stuff. It's called a Youth on Course program. There's over 1,000 courses they can play for $5.
Yeah.
They sign up in our program, and then even if you're traveling out in Florida or the big tout is Torrey Pines. I think my brother-in-law played at a destination wedding out there that paid $285, so the kids can go to San Diego and play Torrey Pines for $5. And the golf course gets subsidized from private fund out of the PGA.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not a big gap between, our $5 rate and our junior rate, but we still have opportunity to get those funds back.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
At this time, we'll open the floor up if there's anybody that would like to approach the
Do we need
podium.
to approve claims?
Oh, yeah, we do, sorry. One more piece of business first. So, I would motion that we
Second.
accept the claims as presented for this month. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public, if you would like to approach the podium, now's your chance. Turn it on, Pumpkin.
Oh, no,
Pumpkin.
we'll tell you, now you're good.
Lisa Ferguson, I live at 718 East Second Street. Glad Roger's here because he doesn't tout himself well enough. So a good thing that I'm glad you all did, since Charlie's now an employee of the golf course, is hire a lady who seems to know what she's doing in the kitchen. And it's awesome because we keep telling Carla that nowhere else, and our son's a daily golfer, nowhere else does the golf pro manage the snack bar. So finally, there's a lady that's like doing it all, cleaning it all, and don't you think that's good, Roger? It's very good because she's maybe a little older and knows what she's doing back there. So good job on that. We appreciate that because since we have a golfer, we know that the golf pro at none of the places he plays has anything to do with the food bar. So I was interested to ask about the pool rental because I've talked to a few other people who wondered where we came up with the $800 plus paying for 11 lifeguards if you rent it, because that seems way out of anybody's budget that I know, unless your last name is not Ferguson. So, and I said, well, I'll bring that up because I don't know where they came up with that idea, but.
You pay one lifeguard per 75 people.
Oh, so
So-
you don't have to pay for 11 lifeguards at every station?
No.
Because you're not expecting 899 people.
Correct.
Okay, good. See, got that clarified. Thank you, Scott. A lot of people, and I'm sure Jan will say this too, have been asking, and I'm glad Scott brought that up too, why we're closing at 6 on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays when there's no classes. I didn't know that till I talked to Shelley a couple weeks ago and found out. I'm like, and I have a pass. I'm one of those 9 people you said that have an individual pass because I will never go that amount of time to the pool. I've been 14 out of the 35 times. But it was important for me to say to my city, I support you all doing this. And so $175 was my way of saying, I don't mind how many times I'm not going to get to use it. I want to be able to do that. And as a person who's signed up to say they could swim from 12 to 6, if it costs extra to swim later, I'm willing to pay that. So that's okay if, that's something that you're looking at. But I think there's a lot of people we're missing out on because they're not off of work until 5 or 5:30 on Fridays, and so we're missing that group. And I know I've talked to Shelley numerous days there, what it's like with all those lifeguards there and sickness, and they had to close part of it last Saturday, so I get it. The check-in system at the pool is terrible. I'm only one of 9, I found out tonight, who has a season pass, but all they do is ask me for my card, and then they're like writing down on pieces of paper what my number is. A couple of weeks ago, the young boy was going through all these pages. I'm like, it's Ferguson. It starts with an F. It should be in alphabetical order. He's like, it's not in alphabetical order. I'm like, okay, can I look at it? Because my name will stand out. No, you're not allowed to do that. And I'm like, okay. Then he goes, your name's not even on the list. I'm like, I've been here 11 other times. I promise. That's really my pass. And so one of the girls is like, she goes, I see her, she's here all the time, just let her go on in. So whatever the check-in system is slow. Shelley did a great thing. She ended up putting a sign that said, if you've got a pass, you can go on in the left side and not wait behind all the other people waiting to pay. So, woo, that's awesome, Shelley. I love the swim at your own risk thing because I'm never going to get into the deep end. So it'd be okay with me if you said from 6 to 9 or whatever it is. The adult-only swim time would be, we've all been talking about, couldn't we just do one night a month or once every couple of weeks of adult-only swim 6 to 10, and we'd pay extra, not our pass. I don't expect to, get anything above what I paid for, but I'd pay extra for adult-only swim time just because, I got adult kids. Just a couple other things. I'm sure you're addressing some of this, but I don't know that unless I tell it to you. It's a muddy mess. Yeah, okay. I knew all I needed to say was mud, and then all that mud where they're lining up for the diving boards is coming into the pool because your feet look like when you were a kid and you're stomping mud pies. So I figured that was something. That round part we call the adult fish bowl because, it doesn't have the filtration system to drag stuff out of there. So if you get in there on Monday, looks like the same things there on Tuesday and Wednesday. So somehow that filter system's not getting into what we call that fish bowl around the lazy river. Somebody asked me this today when I was driving on the golf cart. Do you have a target date for the opening of Legacy Park?
I think it's Memorial Day or Labor Day.
Oh, not for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, because we keep seeing them working, but there's just dirt, so, okay. And I didn't hear anything about when the surveys went out that y'all did, like, remember the night we all came and got to hear about the 5-year plan? Okay. Yeah, so see, I missed it, so, because I have a special person that tells me when park board is, and,
The meeting, we had nobody yet.
yeah, because it probably was on a different night, so. Okay. So I think that's it. I was just like interested. So I always feel like if I got the right information when people ask, I'm like, well, I know this because I asked. So thank you all.
Before I forget, Roger, I want to remind you that Hannah does all the promotional stuff for the parks. So if you just send her some information about your second session of First Tee, she's happy to push that out. So don't forget that. You don't have to promote it. Just get the right information to the person who does.
It's on.
So, that's a good lead-in, Carla. The changes to the pool, need to be communicated to the public. There's still a lot of people that don't know, that you can walk in for water aerobics. There are lots of people that don't know, at least I couldn't find it on Facebook or a city website, what is going on after 6 o'clock. So there needs to be more communication. Just because there was some stuff out there when it first opened and when you first were signing up for classes, I was on a wait list, I never got contacted. I would think I would have been one of the first people contacted that you can now walk in. That didn't happen. So the communication piece really, it's great that you're making changes as you go. Just make sure the public knows. Thank you. And I'm going to water aerobics.
And we should clarify that you can walk in if there's a spot. Like if all 39 people show up, then we don't allow walk-ins. Does that make sense? Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. I mean, I'm sure that you're right. Anybody else have anything or would like to approach the microphone? Okay, could I get a motion?
No, I have one question. I'm sorry
Okay. No, go ahead.
to push till the end. When you say swim at your own risk, I assume you mean no lifeguards. Does our insurance allow that?
As long as you post it and people are aware of it, you can
Okay.
do that,
Okay.
yes.
That's a scary thought to me, by the way.
I don't like it. I don't like it myself, but we're gonna start talking to lifeguards probably in the next 2 weeks to see what their plans are, when they're leaving, and who's gonna stick around, and who's gonna be here for nights or weekends. Cause it's just not that school starts, it's that there's extracurricular activities that start. And so, you know, they may not be at school at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but they may have soccer practice. So we've got to kind of figure that out and see what our pool is, for availability. Weekends might be better, but probably our college kids won't be back at all, and so we got to figure out how to adapt for that. And maybe it's we have access to the pool, but some, you know, the slides are shut down, or some variation of how to minimize the number of people we need. But we need to start talking about that here in the next couple weeks.
Okay, so I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.